This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, where we celebrate the role players and the underdogs in sports. And our Moonlighter for today is a guy who played one season of minor league baseball. He actually played 19 professional baseball games. In those 19 games, he hit 172. He never hit a professional home run. He had 3 RBIs, 1 stolen base. There's nothing about his statistics that really stand out when you look him up. But the most interesting part about our Moonlighter for today is he played his one minor league season in 1955. That's right. Our Moonlighter played his one professional season of minor league baseball 68 years ago. He's currently over 90 years old. He's our oldest Moonlighter we've ever had here on the podcast. His name is Robert Etzel. So Robert Etzel is actually a guy from my hometown in Fort Dodge. And what's funny is about a year ago, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you're from Fort Dodge, right?" And it's not a hometown friend. He lives here in Des Moines. And I said, "Yeah, I'm from Fort Dodge." He said, "Hey, man, I know this guy from Fort Dodge. He's a huge sports fan. You've got to talk to him." Well, it turns out it's Robert Etzel, Bob Etzel. And as soon as I heard Robert's name, I thought, man, I know that last name because I played baseball for a guy named Jack Etzel. After my freshman baseball season at Iowa Central, for about a month period of time before I went up to the Northwoods League, I played in a wood bat league in Des Moines for a team called Midwest Toy. And Midwest Toy was a toy company out of Fort Dodge. And this guy named Jack Etzel, he ran this team to play in this wood bat league, college summer baseball league. And Jack Etzel at the time was like a guy in his late 70s that was coaching the team. And he was a baseball lifer, a baseball junkie. And the funny story I have about Jack Etzel is that in his 70s, one time when I was a college baseball player, we only had 8 players. And Jack Etzel, at the age of probably 75 years old, suited up. He played left field for us, and he hit twice. And in that game, he had an at-bat as a 75-year-old man. He fouled a ball off straight back, swinging the bat, and he tried to drag bunt for a hit. He did not get a hit in the game as a 75-year-old man, but I still to this day remember thinking, I cannot believe this guy who's over 50 years older than me is taking an at-bat against a college pitcher and actually looked like he knew what he was doing in the batter's box. Like you could tell that Jack Etzel was a good ball player even at 75 years old. And so when I heard the name Robert Etzel, do you want to talk to him? I said, if he's got any relation to Jack Etzel, I would absolutely love to talk to him because Jack Etzel has passed at this point. And I always thought in the back of my head, I would have loved to have Jack Etzel on the podcast. Well, I got the next best thing. I got Robert Etzel to come here on the podcast. He's in his 90s now, but he's still a super sharp dude. And just talking to him about what it was like to grow up in my hometown in Fort Dodge in the 1940s and the 1950s. He actually played junior college baseball. He played junior college football at Iowa Central. He went on to play at Simpson College as well, where he was a 3-sport star at Simpson. He played minor league baseball. He played baseball for the House of David. If you guys, do a Google search if you don't know what the House of David baseball team was, but it was a barnstorming team of mostly Jews. And he actually played for them for, I believe, one game. He tells that story here on the podcast. So for this podcast, I could have edited it down a little bit more. Robert and I, we go for over an hour here, just to warn you. But I didn't want to edit it. And the why behind not wanting to edit it is because I had so much fun sitting with a guy that grew up in, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s in small town Iowa, and sitting down with somebody like that and really getting a feel for who they are and what life was like, not only in their world today, but growing up 50, 60, 70 years ago. I really wanted to just leave this podcast as it was, so that if you have the time today to spend an hour listening to this, you really feel like you spent an hour with Robert Etzel. You spent an hour with a guy who's lived a great life and continues to do so. I think there's something special about like honoring the generations that have come before us. You know, I've had my dad here on the podcast. I've had my grandpa here on the podcast. And part of what we're trying to do here with the Moonlight Graham show is not only shine a light on these stories that not a lot of people have, but also capture these memories of times of a different era and making sure that, you know, somebody gets Robert Etzel's story on record because it deserves to be told. And so I had so much fun meeting Robert, sitting down with him. I met his son as well, and just capturing some of his stories. I can tell you through a lot of this interview, like he brought some old newspaper clippings, and we're going through, you know, some of his newspaper clippings of Eagle Grove versus Farnhamville and all these small towns in Iowa. If there's a small town baseball field in the state of Iowa, chances are Robert and his brother Jack, they played on that field, and they probably won a couple of games on that field. So enjoy today's conversation with the great Robert Etzel. Moonlighters, are you or someone you know moving down to Kansas City? Well, if you are, the one realtor that we trust and yet you need to be calling is the great Brian Sandvig. As you well know, Brian Sandvig is our producer here on the podcast, and there is not a better residential real estate advisor down in the Kansas City marketplace than Brian Sandvig. Call Brian Sandvig, shoot him a text. Hey, DM us on social media. We'll get you connected with Brian if you can't find him on all the socials, but he is there and he is active, and he is your Kansas City realtor, so give him a call. Bob Etzel joining the Moonlight Graham show. Bob, before we started recording there, you were telling the story about hitchhiking to Wrigley Field to watch the Cubs play when you're 14 years old. Tell me that story again.
And I went, well, I think about 12 or 13. And, of course, being that young, standing out in the corner, almost the first car went by would stop, you know. And they'd take me so far and let me off. And then but I probably got into Chicago as quick as if I drove.
So was it just regular families picking you up, or were they delivery vehicles? Or
all kinds of nice people. Of course, there wasn't too many cars back then, you know, so, but it was, you know, a young kid. Probably if I was my age now, nobody'd give me a ride. But
how many times did you how many different cars did you take?
Oh, I can't remember exactly. I suppose 3 or 4.
And who's playing for the Chicago Cubs? Like, what?
Took me. I told him I wanted to go to the Y when I got near the last driver. He took me right to the Y.
And you stayed overnight at the Y in Chicago?
Yeah.
And do you remember who was playing for the Cubs at that time?
I really can't remember.
Yeah.
And then the second time I went, I hitchhiked in. I just had to hit it lucky. The Cubs played on Saturday and the White Sox played on Sunday. And I wanted to go that one weekend because I wanted to see Ted Williams play. I still think he's the greatest hitter of all time.
Were you able to see Williams play against the White Sox?
He's the first one, you know, to hit 400 in the major leagues.
That's right. He hit 406.
And nobody's hit that since. But
so when you go to Chicago, are you literally going by yourself, or did you go with a friend or with a brother? How'd you have money to get a ticket to the game? Like, how did that all work?
Well, I don't know. I had enough money. And then Jack, my brother, did it once after I did it twice.
Yeah.
But we didn't go together. We figured it'd be too hard, you know, with 2 people.
Right. There might not be enough room in the cars if you're hitchhiking for both Jack and Bob.
Right.
So I knew your brother, Jack Etzel. He coached me one summer playing for the Midwest Toy baseball team down here in Des Moines. And I saw your brother taking that bat, and this would have been 2005, and he's now passed, but he had to be in his 70s at that time. Who was a better ball player, your brother or you?
He is.
He was a better ball player?
Well, I went further, but he was a good ball player. We were on the same team. He was a freshman, and I was probably a junior. Of course, I led her 3 years at Fort Dodge in baseball. And so the same way on the basketball team. I played all 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball. but I only won 2. I won 7 letters, and he won 10. So he's a better athlete than I was. But
what was growing up in Fort Dodge like in the 1940s?
Trying to think. Harvest Festival. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Out the stadium.
At Dodger Stadium?
I think that's where it was,
Yeah.
if I remember right. And
because in Fort Dodge, of course, you have that Dodger Stadium, which is, a brick stadium, WPA project, and you played in that when it was fairly new. I mean, it's still a great stadium today, but what was that like when you were playing in it back in your high school days?
Back when I was, of course, I'm 60 or 93 and a half now, but back when I went to high school, the only baseball diamond in Fort Dodge is at the stadium out there. They had the football stadium. And did you know that they tore down the old high school building and they saved the bricks that they used to put that wall all around the football and the baseball stadium?
I did not know that. So you're saying the bricks at Dodger Stadium today were the old high school that they tore down and they just reused the bricks?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
In the wall.
Yeah.
And trying to think of some of the other things.
So you're growing up and you're playing baseball all over the place. I looked up your name on the internet, Bob Etzel, baseball stats. And I found some stats from, I think, 1955 in playing for a team of Carlsbad in the Longhorn League. Was that you?
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, I could go through these clippings so that you know I'm telling you the truth.
Well, no, I believe you. I believe you because I found it on Baseball Reference. If you look yourself up, you can Google Albert Pujols, you can look up Mickey Mantle, and I looked up Bob Etzel, and I found the stats from the Carlsbad team, and you're a catcher for Carls. Oh, well, the internet's wrong then. We got to correct the internet because it has you as a catcher. But tell me about playing for Carlsbad. And is that Arizona?
Yeah. Well, it's right down, Carlsbad's right down by the Mexican border. 112 degrees every day. So we had to play at night. It would cool down to about 95. But I never could stand wool against my skin. So I had to wear long underwear under my uniform. So I was soaking wet by the end of the game.
Because the wool would irritate your skin?
Huh?
The wool would irritate your skin? So you had to wear long underwear? Is that why?
Well, the uniforms were wool. I can't stand wool against my...
Yeah.
And so that kept me out of the service because, I didn't think it would, but actually I was in the Air National Guard in Fort Dodge, and when I transferred from junior college to Simpson, I had to join an Army
regiment or
in Des Moines.
Unit. Yeah.
But I had to take a physical. So I went to take a physical, and they were asking me about, are you allergic to anything? And I said, yeah, I'm allergic to honey, and I can't stand wool against my skin. And I think when I was young, my mother bought a wool pair of pants, and I wore it to school about every day. And so I don't know.
You brought up.
They found out that I couldn't stand wool against my skin, so they made me 4F. That's the only reason I could have played baseball. And then about 6 months later, they called the Air Guardian, so Jack had to go. I don't know where they went up in somewhere. I don't know where he went, but.
And was that the Korean War then?
Hmm?
Was that the Korean War with Jack?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but. I didn't ask to be 4F, but they said, well, if you can't stand wool against your skin, we're going to give you 4F, so I didn't.
And what's 4F mean? What's that mean?
Well, it means you don't have to serve in the Army. So I wouldn't have been able to go, I don't know if that guard in Des Moines ever got called in, but I didn't. I'd went about 3 years in Fort Dodge to the, Air Guard there. But about 6 months after I transferred to Des Moines to go to Simpson, and had to join another unit. They called the Air National Guard into the regular service, so Jack had to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, as I say, I took this physical, and I just told him, I was allergic to honey, and I can't stand wool against my skin.
And that was enough for the 4F.
The uniforms were wool. And so they probably figured, I'd be miserable all day unless I put long underwear under it. That's what I had to do. But so anyway.
So you ended up in Carlsbad then. Was that after?
That was after I went.
How did you end up along the Mexican border playing baseball?
Well,
in 1955.
Have you got a lot of time?
We got all the time in the world, Jack.
Let's start out. I'll tell you, we didn't have Little League baseball when I was young. But when I was about...
Jack, could you put the mic closer to your... There you go.
Oh, when I was about 15, they had Junior Legion baseball, and I made the team. And we played several games. One of the games we played down in Des Moines, they had a diamond out by where that hospital is at.
Mm-hmm.
And we were playing some Des Moines team. And I was playing first base, left-handed. And Pete Lilonetti, I don't know if you ever heard of him, hit a line drive. He's a real heavy-set kid. Hit a line drive, hit me right in the forehead. It went up about 50 feet in the air, and Lauren Shalene, our third baseman, caught it by the pitcher's mound. So they knocked me out, of course. So,
did it knock you out? Yeah.
So they had the hospital there, so they took me in, checked me over and everything, and said, well, you're good enough to go home. So that's my first injury, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, when I was a junior in high school, I used to work out at the mills, USG.
That's right.
In the summertime. So as I started playing when I was a sophomore, so I lettered 3 years in baseball. But anyway, about the first day I was out there, I was trying to think his name, came up to me, and he came to some of the high school games because he had a son that was a good baseball pitcher at Fort Dodge. Then he went on to South Dakota, I think, and pitched there. So he looked me up and he said, Bob, could you help me get some high school players? I'd like to see a team start in Fort Dodge, and a semi-pro team. So I said, okay. So I called around. Most of the players wanted to play softball. That was a big game. And they didn't want to play baseball during the summer, so I think I got a couple that would go. So he says, well, why don't you call the messenger and put it in the paper, you're going to have a tryout. So we had a tryout at Butler Field,
Oh, yeah.
Used to have a diamond there at one time.
On the south side there?
Yeah. Used to be quite a semi-pro league there, Twilight League they call it. Oh, Connie Beiser was the one.
Oh, Connie Beiser.
Connie?
Well, legendary Beiser Lumber in Fort Dodge. So, yeah.
I don't know if he had might have been a relative.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he said, call the messenger. So I called the messenger and set up a date for a tryout. And so, of course, I went to the tryout. There was about 40 people showed up. All you need is about 12. And I had to pick 12. Here I was 15 or 16 years old. Had to pick out, I had to keep the two high school players plus myself and Jack.
And are you coaching the team as well?
Yeah, I was the manager.
Yeah, and playing on it.
So I figured Connie Goodman or Connie Beiser was going to manage it, So I had, when I went out there, he didn't show up. There I was out there with all these players, and I had to pick just 12. And our oldest player was 32 years old. He's an outfielder. And our catcher was 30, and one of our pitchers was 20, or several of our, I don't know if you knew Preschold, Harry Preschold. Mm-hmm. You ever heard that?
No.
He was quite a left-handed pitcher. And he was 30 years old. And so I had to pick 12. But before that, I went back to work. And I said to Connie, you didn't show up. I thought you was going to manage it. Well, Bob, you got it all organized. Go ahead. Here I am, 15 years old.
I was going to say, you're 15 years old, yeah.
A baseball team, of course, and mostly older guys. I didn't even have a car, so I had to use, them guys. So, anyway, then I had to get the only baseball diamond in Fort Dodgers, the one at Dodger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go talk to the athletic director if we could use the field. So when I went in and talked to him, I said, it was going to be 2 or 3 high school players playing on it. Could we use your field? He said, well, I'll tell you, I'd have to charge you something. I think he charged us $15 to use the base.
Not a bad deal there.
Yeah. But the messenger in Fort Dodge was real good.
They cover all the games and keep the stats.
And my brother Jack was quite a writer. And I might show you some article there about some of the things he wrote. But anyway, he said, well, we have to charge you $15 a game. And the USG bought our uniforms. They sponsored us, give us some money for bat and balls.
And would you guys play, would you go to Humboldt and Webster City? Or who were you playing in the semi-pro league?
Yeah, then I had to find games. I know we played at Edel. We played about every. I've got a write-up on it here. We had to call our team the Red Tops.
The Red Tops. USG Red Tops, 4-2 victory over Eagle Grove. Bob Etzel scored a run. Ray Johnson hit you home on a triple.
That was a 32-year-old outfielder, real tall, big guy.
And then you played Gowrie the next week. Well, Gowrie had its own team.
Yeah.
So here's the list. Here's the roster. Jim Baker, he went to Iowa State. Roger Hansen, Humboldt High School. Gene Murphy. Keith McNeil. Was that like Ed McNeil?
Ed McNeil.
Yeah. Jack Etzel. Bob Etzel. Wilford Stringer. Now that's a name. I bet that guy could play. Bud Moding. Tommy Thompson. Don Scottfield. That's the squad right there. But they're all from all over the place. So you have some Pocahontas names on there, some Humboldt. So you guys were drawn from quite an area for this semi-pro team.
Right. Well, they came to practice.
Yeah, they showed up for the tryout because the messenger.
Several players from out of town, 3 or 4 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
how would you get to games? If you're 15 years old and you're managing the team, are you just bumming a ride with the 32-year-old guy, Wilford Stringer?
These old guys had cars. And if I remember right, we scheduled several games during the week at Sheridan. They were the only ballpark that had lights in the state of Iowa. And then
Sheridan was? Sheridan, Iowa was the only ballpark in the state with lights.
At that time.
That's great.
And so we played during the week there. We must have played them about 4 or 5 times during the summer. And then we played either Saturday or Sunday or both days. I scheduled, and the guys won. So we were playing about 3 games a week.
What was that like playing
and
under?
We beat almost everybody we played. We really had a good team.
Well, it sounds like you had a bunch of guys that were playing college ball then, so it sounds like there was a good squad.
Yeah.
You're playing under the lights in the 1940s. What were the lights like? I mean, was it hard to see the ball? I can't imagine the lights were of great quality.
I don't know. We seemed to. It was the best we could do. That's all there was. So, but we played, I think, Sheridan about 10 times during the summer because we would play them during the week, and then other games we scheduled was on weekends. But as I say, I didn't really want to be the manager, but since I got it organized and Connie Beiser, that he was an older guy. He was quite a pitcher when he was young in that Twilight League in Fort Dodge.
So you were playing, was this semi-pro league after the high school season? you'd play high school baseball in the spring, and then you'd play the semi-pro.
Yeah, we used to play in the spring. We didn't have. Now I think they play in the summer.
Yeah, it kind of creeps into the summer now.
But back then it was just in the spring, and so anyway, and so after the games, Jack would write a big write-up and give us the message, and they'd put it word by word.
So when he's writing those write-ups, I'm sure he's talking up the Etzel brothers, right? It's like, well, no wonder the Etzel brothers are always getting mentioned. Jack's the one writing the article.
Oh, he was a straight-A student. And he always handled, well, I'll show you an article he wrote when we go through these clippings, but we played quite a few games. We won almost all of them, too. These guys were really good. And these teams, were really good that we played.
Mm-hmm.
And
who was the best semi-pro team around? Was it the Fort Dodge team, the Red Tops?
I think so.
Yeah.
There wasn't too many. I know we played Adele and, of course, Sheridan several times during the week. So we usually played either one game during the week, at the middle of the week, and then every weekend we played at least one, maybe two on both Saturday and Sunday. Because, people worked. They couldn't play more than that.
But you never got over to Eastern Iowa and played the Dubuque boys because, they take a lot of pride in their baseball over in Dubuque County.
Well, I can't remember all the teams we played, but this article's Lowry and I don't know what all. But the Red Tops are 4-2 victory over Eagle Grove. But anyway, that was the team.
So after you're done playing in high school and you have the 4F from the military, so you can't go to the war, how did you end up in Carlsbad?
Here's some more of the Red
Yeah,
Tops.
I'll look through this. How'd you end up down in Carlsbad? That's what I want to know.
Huh?
How'd you end up in Carlsbad playing baseball in the Longhorn League in 1955?
Well,
but maybe before we get to that, Bob, I'm reading an article right here. The Cuban All-Stars play the Red Tops. The Cuban All-Stars? You guys played the Cuban All-Star team?
I can't remember. We might have. Said we did.
It says the traveling Cuban All-Star team played the United States Gypsum Red Tops.
Yeah, that'd be us.
So you're playing. So were you also playing not only local Gowrie and Sheridan, but you're also playing like traveling barnstorming baseball teams like the Cuban All-Stars? And did you ever play any Negro Leagues teams that would come through, any of that?
And the messengers gave us big write-ups.
Well, that's because Jack was writing the article.
And we started getting crowds out there. We started out the first couple games, 100 people show up. By the end of the year, we had 1,000 people. We just passed the
hat around?
Yeah, we didn't charge them. And a lot of them followed us. Once Sheridan, half the people there were from Fort Dodge. See, I graduated mid-year.
Did Jack write this article too?
No. They had, they always brought messenger, had people.
Right. No, I was joking. I was just joking because this article is pretty flattering for you. Etzel is a superb support from his mates. The Dodger combination clicked as it never had before. So you led, let's see, you had
12 points.
12 of the 20, yeah.
But we only had 42.
Yeah, you only had 42. Oh, that's pretty good.
See, right at the end there, I hit a couple free throws. I think I hit 4 free throws in a row or something. That's the wins game.
Right there. It's 40-40. You went to the line, and you hit both of them to win 42-40 with 15 seconds to go. And Etzel wound up as the top Dodger scorer. 12 total points, played an all-around excellent game. That's what it says. So you said you graduated mid-year?
Yeah.
How's that work?
Well, my birthday is May 24th, so I couldn't start school in the fall. I was too young. I had to start at mid-year, so I was a mid-year student.
Interesting. I don't know if they do that
after
anymore.
After that, they didn't do it.
I'm looking at these names. Waldo Lindbergh, Coach Goodman. So he was a famous coach.
Yeah.
Connie Goodman, Hall of Fame coach as well.
Yeah.
Did you play for Ed McNeil and Connie Goodman?
Oh, Ed McNeil played with us.
Oh, you played with Ed McNeil. Yeah.
They were from Summers, Iowa. Ed Hendrickson and McNeil. Of course, McNeil's passed away, but Ed Hendrickson's still living up in Okoboji. And I've been up there a couple times to his birthday parties. I actually played 3 years of junior college, which is illegal. But
how'd you do that?
well, when I get to baseball, here's our baseball team.
Look at this article.
Sophomore, junior, senior, but
Rockwell City, Fort Dodge, Corpus Christi, and Summers advance. This was when Corpus Christi had its own high school. Wow. This is amazing. What year? This would have been like 1947? The Dodgers play the Celts?
yeah.
Wow. Harclaw played for Summers. Jack Etzel was 2 for 4. Where's Bob Etzel at? Bob Etzel was 3 for 3. The Etzel brothers had 5 hits. 5 of the 9 Fort Dodge hits beat Summers 10-0. Not a bad day for the Etzel bros. You had Shue, Wold, Fevold, Anderson, Etzel, another Anderson, another Etzel, Schaefer, and Thompson. This is pretty cool. This would have been, 1947 then?
I'm not sure if it was 46, 47,
46 or
48.
47.
I graduated in 48.
Yep. In the spring of...
At mid-year.
Mid-year, yeah.
And so
at that time, did you have 3 high schools in Fort Dodge?
yeah.
It would have been
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart, Corpus Christi, and Fort Dodge Senior High.
Yeah. And a lot of them players came over to the high school in their high school, their senior year or junior year.
Right. The Dodgers would recruit the Catholic school kids over again. That's been happening for years. You steal all our best talent.
Yeah. Of course, Fort Dodge is so much bigger than both them Catholic schools.
I know. Well, that's why we had to merge. Then St. Edmund was created in like 1964-ish, right in there. Well, Eagle Grove got you 77-4 in this game.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
There's some more.
Eagle Grove beats you 7-4, Bob, and Connie Goodman is the umpire. Connie Goodman, your basketball coach, is the umpire for the game, and you lose to Eagle Grove 7-4.
I hired him to umpire our games.
The semi-pro games as well, because you knew you'd get some home cooking from
I
him.
Basketball for him. He also coached the junior college football team.
Really? So you hire him as the umpire for semi-pro because you know you're going to get home cooking from him.
I think I paid him $15 a game. So I had, going back to when I was managing that team at 15, semi-pro team in Fort Dodge, I had to hire umpires. I had to get Connie out there. Of course,
yeah.
I played for him in basketball and junior college football, so he didn't want to charge us, but I'd give him $15 a game.
$15 a game's pretty good. Where'd you get that money? Was that coming from the Gypsum sponsorship as well?
As long as we used their name as Red Tops, that's one of their main products. They give us money for bats and balls. Called Des Moines and had them rush about 12 uniforms, and we got them about a week later. And they paid for everything.
Oh, that's not a bad deal. Were they wool?
Then we started passing the hat, and we'd get $50 or $100. There'd be 1,000 people watching us.
So that would pay enough for the umpires and maybe some beers.
And we did. The trouble is, they had to stand because they didn't have any bleachers out there. But they came, and there's some more games.
Reinholtz, Dodgers, Eagles in the 4th. Etzel at first. Merrill Leffler.
He was all-state football player in high school.
Did he play professionally? What's the story on Merrill Leffler? Man, that name really rings a bell.
Well, he went to Northwestern. He was first string, first team All State. He went to Northwestern, but I don't know if he.
I think Merrill Leffler might have played
on our junior college team.
Did he?
Yeah.
Gosh, that name really rings a bell. I got to look that one up. Merrill Leffler. Redmen. Was that you guys? They also called you the Redmen?
This is Simpson College.
Oh, yeah. So
I'm right there, I think.
left tackle or left end?
I don't.
Where are you at? Oh, yeah, you're the left
played
end. Mm-hmm. You guys beat Central 27-12. So did you play football and baseball at junior college and then at Simpson?
Well, basketball was my best sport in high school, junior college.
Can you put the mic a little closer?
Some articles on that, too.
Uh-huh.
The reason I brought these, I wanted to make sure that
Gosh, look at this. I just love this era when you got these small towns. You got Bradgate playing St. Joseph's. You know, like think about how small a tornado took the entire town of Bradgate out. You know, playing St. Joseph's, and then Otho versus Livermore, 11-0.
Yeah, can you imagine Otho having a baseball team?
Gilmore City versus Lehigh, 4-2. Only Webster County guys get that joke.
That was.
This is in college here.
Simple.
Merrill Leffler got injured. Coach Goodman. A long pass to Bob Etzel playing left end, who was nailed on the 2-yard line, set up a third Panther touchdown. Wow. A pass to Leffler to Etzel scored the final touchdown in sprinting the rest of the way to the goal line.
Bob Brown played with us. He worked for the Messenger for years.
Famous sports writer, Bob Brown.
And his boy got a job in Des Moines.
He's still a great writer here in town. What's his name? Yeah, last name's Brown. So I'm seeing these football pictures here, Bob. You're playing with the leather helmets. You're playing with the leather helmets. What was that like playing football with leather helmets on your head? Like, did you ever get your bell rung? You know.
Oh yeah.
What did that feel like hitting
when
somebody? When
I was playing for Simpson, I played both ways, and I don't know what game it was, but I got knocked out in the fourth quarter, and I didn't wake up until I was on the bus going home. I was out for 3 or 4 hours, but how I played the whole game without going offside, even after I was.
Wait a minute, you kept playing after you were knocked out?
Well, I didn't know it. You know, I was knocked out. I asked some of the players how I did. He says, that was the best game you ever played. I said, I'm going to get knocked off more often.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Knocked out more often. But anyway, how I did it, we went in and took a shower, and we stuffed all of our equipment in the pants, you know, and then threw it up in the rack. But I did all of that when I was knocked out. I don't remember a thing. I woke up on the bus, and I looked up, and I saw, you know, all the equipment up in the racks and all the players. And I thought we were going to a game. They started laughing. Honest, I was out for 3 or 4 hours. I went in and.
Did that happen a lot, or was
that was just once.
Wow!
But how I did all that, I played the rest of the game without going offside or anything.
Right.
I don't know.
And your teammates are saying it's the best game that you played.
Well, they were just
kidding. And now you're still telling the story.
Kidding.
Yeah, I know, but it's still funny. Here we go. Panthers beat Ellsworth. Etzel hits 31 points. Hey, 31 points. Sharp shooter, Bob Etzel. You had 15 field goals in this game.
Well, we didn't have the 3-point line.
I know.
So you had to hit a lot of 2-pointers to get 30 points.
So you played 3 sports in college?
Huh?
You played 3 sports in college?
Well, what happened 3 years in college? 2.5.
But you played football, you played basketball, and you played baseball all at.
Yeah. Well, I played football, and then, of course, basketball, and then baseball. And by the way, we were undefeated in baseball that year. And then I came back and played football, and I played till mid-year in basketball and sprained my ankle. I had a real bad, I couldn't even walk. So I dropped out of the spring. So I missed about 9 games in the state tournament, and of course the baseball season. So then I waited and came back in and played football my second year, and then I started playing basketball. Now I should have quit playing at mid-year because that was 2 years, but they didn't say anything to me, and he wanted me for the tournament, I think. So I just stayed. I played, went on and played the rest of the season and played baseball, and so I really played 2.5 years. I'm the only player that ever played more than 2 years. And
nobody was looking at your eligibility back then. They just
apparently not. We didn't. Now, if I suppose I got caught, they might have had to forfeit all the games we won. But
when you were at Simpson College, then who were you playing at Simpson? Were you playing Central and Wartburg and those kind of Iowa colleges that still exist today?
You know, some of theirs had McNeil on there.
Jack Etzel. Yeah.
Ed McNeil was a longtime baseball coach at Fort Dodge.
Well, the Dodger Stadium field is named after him now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Ed McNeil Field. And he's, I recognize a lot of these names. Those are some legit uniforms. The one thing I will say here, though, Bob, you guys are wearing belts with your basketball uniforms.
Huh?
You guys are wearing belts with your basketball uniforms. You guys have belts on.
Yeah, there's me.
Yeah, you guys look like dorks.
Huh?
You have a belt on with a basketball uniform. Doesn't that look kind of silly?
I still didn't hear what you said.
I think it looks kind of silly that you guys are wearing shorts with belts on them.
Yeah, we had shorts on there.
No, it's just modern fashion wouldn't accept that very well.
This is Jack wrote all that.
Uh-huh.
Paper in high school.
Old Goldie looks sharp and see who's Old Goldie? You remember him? Yeah, Jack, he was a colorful writer, that's for sure. He was giving guys like nicknames here in the articles.
Get down there, it says Bob Etzel, Friendship Haven, Fort Dodge.
Where's that?
Is it on there?
I don't see it here, no.
Oh, must be another one I got later.
Long-throated newcomer Bob Etzel at first was a thing of beauty and a joy to behold.
Oh, that must have been a Carlsbad.
Yeah. Oh, this was Carlsbad. Oh, yeah, you're right. This isn't Jack Wright, and this is a Carlsbad article.
Yeah.
Old Goldie. This is the Longhorn standing. So this must have been when you were Carlsbad. So did you start going to play in Carlsbad right after Simpson?
Well, let me get...
Oh, we'll get to it, yeah.
I think that's me right there.
Uh-huh. Simpson Co. series. Cool. So here we go. Football for Simpson.
We beat Central.
12-7. You guys beat Central here.
Oh, we got beat?
Or no, 27-12.
We beat them?
Yeah, you beat them.
And we got third place when I was with the Panthers in junior college in Fort Dodge. And I was always a starter, and of course you saw where I got 30 points in 2 games.
Oh, yeah, I'd put you in the lineup too. Gene Clemens.
You know any of them?
I dated his granddaughter for a while. I did. Yeah, he passed about 2 years ago. Gene did.
Oh.
So you're right. This is you, and that's Gene right here, right? Right here and here. Wow.
Jack's on there too somewhere.
And Bob Brown's in here. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a cool picture.
We were undefeated in baseball.
Oh, man, those are some uniforms.
I think that's me there.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed McNeil should be on there. This kid right here was from Muscatine, I think, came to junior college. Really a terrific athlete. He should have started on the basketball team, but
Did you ever have one of those letter jackets there?
yeah, I got one.
That's cool. So, Bob.
Here I am right here. This is Ed Hendrickson, and this kid was really outstanding pitcher.
What's the NR on the hats?
Huh?
This guy's got NR on the hat. Does that mean anything? Right there.
I don't know. Is that Ed?
I don't know.
You know, Ed McNeil represented the state of Iowa back when he was in high school. They picked one kid from every state. They had a game somewhere, and they picked Ed McNeil from Summers, Iowa, to represent Iowa. That's how good an athlete he was. And yet he didn't play football because they didn't have, both Ed Hendrickson and Ed McNeil came from Summers, Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and Ed he never played football, but he played basketball and baseball in junior college. But he was never a starter on the basketball team, but he was one of the best players on the baseball team.
When you were at Simpson then, so you went kind of 2.5 years at Fort Dodge Junior College, and then you play, here we go,
Played Drake.
Here we go, you're playing Drake.
We got a triple play. Only triple play ever. What happened, Drake hit a line drive down to the third baseman. They had a guy on second and first. And, of course, he touched the bag, get him out. He threw to second, and then he threw to me at first. So we got a only triple play I was ever involved in.
I'm seeing an article here that you hit a home run for Simpson.
Yeah. That was against Omaha.
Against Omaha here.
University.
Do you remember that home run?
Yeah. There's only... I played 2 years for Simpson. We never lost a conference game.
Really?
And we played Drake about 3 or 4 times. We played Omaha just once. But that was where I got the home run. But it put us ahead, but then they went on and won. I think they beat us 9-7.
Yeah, 9-7.
But that was the only game we lost all year.
Did you hit left-handed as well?
Left-handed, yeah.
So do you remember hitting that home run?
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
It was down over the right fielder's head.
Uh-huh.
And
do you remember the pitch? Was it a fastball, curveball?
I can't remember.
Yeah. But you remember the feeling of hitting it.
That was the only home run I hit all season for Linden. For Simpson.
Yeah. Well, you better not forget it then.
Of course, going back to Sudan, I used to hit it. I used to use a real heavy bat and hit a long ball.
When you use a heavy bat like that, Bob.
But when my senior year at Simpson, I picked up a real small bat, and man, they couldn't get me out. I was the only player ever to hit 500 at Simpson College.
For the whole season?
For the whole season.
Oh, wow.
But I was getting 3 or 4 hits every game.
And it all, you credit that to using the lighter bat, the smaller bat?
Yeah. Here's the Letterman, and here's probably says, look at some of the...
Yeah, veterans, Bob Etzel, Skip Eason, Denny Pace. You had a lot back here for the Redmen. 2 for 4 in this game against Drake. Seems like Skip Eason was a pretty good ball player.
Oh, he was a good pitcher.
Yeah, he's in about every one of these articles. Etzel drove in 2 runs. So you guys never lost a conference game for Simpson?
No, 2 years.
Was there any chance to like win the College World Series or play in the postseason when you were at Simpson, or did the season just end after
ends.
Yeah. Did you guys win the conference then? Obviously,
Mm-hmm. We played Buena Vista for the championship
and beat them.
Yeah, we had. There's Skip Easons was our best pitcher, but that's why we probably got beat by Drake once, I think, in Omaha beat us. But he wouldn't let. He wanted to save Eason for our conference games, so he wouldn't let him pitch against non-conference teams. If he'd have pitched, we probably would have had a good chance of winning. But we beat some of the conference teams 15-2 and just drubbed them. We really had some good players.
What was when you think back on all the days you spent out on the baseball diamond, what was your best day of baseball?
Best day?
Best day out on the ballpark.
Oh, boy. Probably that Omaha game.
When you hit the home run?
Yeah.
Was the home run with the big bat or with the smaller bat?
Oh, that small bat.
Uh-huh. Why didn't you switch to that sooner?
Huh?
Why didn't you use the little bat sooner?
Well, I didn't know. I just thought I'd try it. Boy, they couldn't get me out.
Yeah.
I was getting 2 and 3 hits a game.
Man, that's a good picture. I love all the uniforms. When you look back on all the uniforms from that era, they're all just great. Who's this here? So the Merchants.
Linden
Merchants?
We won the summer. We played in Pioneer Park in Des Moines. I, of course, Hap Miller called. This guy called Hap to see if there's any players from Simpson wanted to play for the team, and so he recommended me to go play there. So I did, and he told him I hit 500. So I batted third on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got to the state tournament, he moved me up to first. I was the leadoff because he wanted me to get as much hit.
As many at bats as possible.
And so, but we
how was your speed?
Huh?
Were you fast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of missed the little things, but when I graduated from high school mid-year, I hitchhiked to North Carolina to a baseball school. And I was using a heavy bat, and I was hitting the balls, a lot of them over the fence. They thought I was the next Mickey Mantle coming. So they sent me to...
When you say you hitchhiked to a baseball school, what do you mean by that? Like, what's a baseball school?
Well, it was a school that...
Like for prospective professional players? Yeah. That they're just fostering guys that they think got a chance to...
Yeah. Most of them are from the East Coast because of North Carolina. I was the only Iowa player there. But I won the 40-yard dash. And I was hitting the long ball with that heavy bat. And
so you hitchhiked. So how did you find out about this? Who told you about it?
I don't know. In the paper, I suppose. I don't know. Back then.
Yeah.
But
so you show up at this baseball facility.
Well, they sent me to... I went to spring training with... they sent me to the Giants spring training, and I got to meet Willie Mays and all. As I said, they got 9 diamonds there.
I see that.
And boy, they had tangerines. I ate about 9 tangerines a day. And at night, the major league teams was there and all the minor league teams. We were only there for about 10 days, but we'd practice in the morning, then we'd go watch the major league players practice in the afternoon. So I got to watch them play a couple. We were near the end of the 10 days. They started playing exhibition games. But so this one time we practiced kind of late. So I went with my uniform and sat down and watched the major league team play. I went and took a shower with them. I was 17 years old, but I was really almost 18 because my birthday's May 24th. But they probably thought I was a bat boy, 17 years old, going to spring training in the Major League.
Did you shower with Willie Mays?
Oh, yeah. And I got talking to Willie Mays, one of the great players of all time. And he asked me where I was from, and how old are you? I said, I'm 17. He says, 17? I'll see you in the majors. Of course, I never made it to the majors, but he was a super nice guy. And I got talking. Of course, we ate supper together at night, all of us.
Wow.
There must have been 1,000 players there. But I got to talk to I made it a point to try to talk to all the major league players.
Oh, yeah.
But Billy Mays is the most famous player I ever played with.
And that was when the Giants were in New York, of course.
Huh?
That's before the Giants moved out west. They were in New York at the time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's unbelievable, some of the things I did. I don't think I was that good. But
So that was when you were 17. So that was before you went to college.
No, yeah, that was right out of high school.
That was right out of high school. So after the 10 days that you spend at this baseball academy in spring training with the Giants, then you came back to Fort Dodge to play.
What happened after about 10 days practicing there, we started playing some of the teams in the league. I can't remember what the name of the league was. But anyway, we played about 4 or 5 games before the season started. On the last game, exhibition game I played in, I sprained my ankle. And so I sat with the team after the season started. And finally the manager told me, well, Bob, you can't play. We're going to have to release you. But he wanted me to go to a male team in North Carolina they had several male teams. They had a league, and they hired only ex-pro players. And what we do, we practice in the morning, work in the morning. I was a burler in the cloth factory.
You were a burler?
Burler, yeah. I'd watch the cloth go by, and I'd see a bad spot, I'd stop it, and they'd fix it.
What a job.
And then we'd get off at noon. We could practice all afternoon. We'd get paid for a full day. And so I was only there about 2 weeks, and a scout came up and talked to me. He said, would you like to play with the House of David? Their first baseman broke his leg. He's out for the year. We need a first baseman. And he said the manager at the team I was playing right in New Jersey, I can't remember, said Bob Etzel was our first baseman here, but he sprained his ankle, and so you couldn't keep him, but he would be good enough to play with the House of David, I guess. So anyway, he came and looked me up. He said, would you like to go play with the House of David? And I said, yeah. He said, well, if you do, call this number and he'll send you a bus ticket. You can meet him down in South Carolina. And with this male team, we only played about 4 games a week when we hadn't started playing in league games yet. But he said with the House of David, they play every night, probably one night off a week. But they play all over the United States.
It was a huge deal.
And they played the Negro teams, they couldn't play in the majors.
Yep.
Played all them teams, and so I decided, well, I'd rather than play 4 games a week and have to work, and I think they paid us $200 a month.
Not bad.
That was pretty good money back then. And played every night. I decided, okay, I called the manager, so he sent me he wired a bus ticket. And so I went and I played a game with the House of David. But I still had a sprained ankle. I had a elastic bandage on it, tape, And first time up, I got a hit, and he was watching me run. I wasn't running very good, kind of. So after the game, he said to me, "Something wrong with your leg?" I said, "Well, I sprained it, but it's getting better." He says, "Take the bandage off. I want to look at it." So I took the bandage off. It was swelled, So I'm taking you to the doctor in the morning. So I said, "Okay." So they took an X-ray. They found out that I had it wasn't a sprained ankle. It was a broken leg. It was
like a torn ligament or an actual broken bone?
Yeah, broken bone. Here I played.
You got a hit. You got a hit with a broken bone in your foot.
I played the whole game, and so of course the doctor then put a cast on my leg, and I hitchhiked back to Fort Dodge, and so then I went to junior college. I thought, well, I might as well. I didn't get the cast off till the middle of summer.
Boy, Bob, I tell you what, you're glad. It's good for you that the NCAA wasn't around back then, because you're playing 2.5 years at Fort Dodge Junior College. You're getting paid to play baseball. You're going to professional tryout camps. You're showering with Willie Mays, and then you go back to college. That wouldn't fly nowadays.
Well, I walked in. I was just going to go to college, and Connie Goodman saw me.
Yeah, he knows you're a good athlete.
"Are you coming to junior college? You going to roll and roll?" And I said, "Yeah. If you'll come out for football, I'll give you a scholarship." So I thought, well, gee whiz, I don't know if I should do this. So I did, and I got a free scholarship. Played football for him. You read the clippings.
Yeah, the Panthers.
And then when basketball season, he came and recruited me at Fort Dodge. And when I was in junior college, were we at Simpson yet?
Not yet. We're still at. You said did Hap recruit you? Hap Miller?
Hap Miller, yeah. He was
recruited
the football and baseball coach at Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And he came and recruited me, gave me a full ride scholarship. I don't know if anybody had as good a deal as I did, but he found me, I had a scholarship. Never cost my dad a dime for me to go to college.
That's amazing.
And he gave me a place to stay, and old maid rented out the upstairs to our house. There's 3 or 4 of us guys living up there. But I didn't pay a dime for what I do is take our storm windows off and put screens on, mow the lawn, shovel the sidewalk. But I didn't pay a dime to her.
Wow.
And then he got me a job at washing dishes at the Rocket Cafe. And so after football practice, I'd go, they'd have a table just full of dirty dishes. Of course, I had a dishwasher. It'd take me about 2 hours to wash all of them dishes for my free meals. So it didn't cost me anything to
eat, to live, or to go to school.
Yeah. I don't know if any player ever got the deal I got. So then, because it was Fort Dodge, it must have given me a hell of a...
Yeah.
So, anyway...
Well, I'm going to come back around to it here, Bob, because I still want to know how you ended up in Carlsbad playing baseball on the Mexican border.
Well, this was when we played at Linden. We were state...
Yeah, this is when you're... Is this in the summers of Simpson? Dick and Don Bertle.
Summer. Yeah, that's the team.
Hey, 1953 straight champs. Bob Etzel, there he is. God, those jackets are good.
Dick Patel on there?
Who's that?
He was just out of high school, the best high school player in the state of Iowa.
Who was that?
Dick Patel.
Oh, Dick Patel, him and Don.
And guess what? I batted third. He batted sixth. 3 years later, he's catching for the Cubs.
Really?
Field. He went to Iowa State and made him a catcher at Iowa State. He was only there 2 years, and he signed a professional contract. He went to the minor leagues. He played just a few games. They moved him up to the Cubs. So he's the first Cub player that was the catcher to ever hit 300 for the Cubs.
Were him and Don
sixth on this team, and I was batting third. Here, 3 years later, he's playing in the major leagues.
That's pretty incredible.
That's left-handed pitcher, played several years in the minor leagues.
The tall one?
Huh?
The tall one? Is he the pitcher?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that catcher played at Louisville in college or in high school, or I mean,
probably college.
Before the war started. He played for Louisville in AAA, and he was in the service for 5 years. And when he came out, he was about 33 years old. So he started playing. We got $20 a game to play at Linden.
You guys got paid pretty well.
I used to ride with Don Bates to all the Linden games.
And were most of those games in central Iowa?
Boy, this catcher was probably, I played with some pro catchers, but I'd put this Bates up with any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And really hit a long ball. Hit a lot of home runs for Linden. And so the next year, after we won both Kellogg called us, and they wanted Don to come over and play at Kellogg. They were in a league with several teams in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
He also asked about me, and he said, yeah, he's a good player. So I went with him. We went to Kellogg and played the season there. And, this great player for Iowa State, the guard, played against Chamberlain.
Oh.
What's his name?
Gary Thompson.
Yeah.
The Rolling Rocket.
He was playing for baseball for this one team, so I played against him several times. I made it a point to go over and meet him.
Yeah. Oh, he was a great athlete.
Yeah, oh boy. He was an All-American.
He was
at Iowa State.
I know it. I mean, he probably
Iowa State knocked off Chamberlain, Kansas.
That's right.
Upset him.
And he also was the shortstop for Iowa State.
Good baseball player.
Yeah, and he didn't play. Interesting thing about Gary Thompson is he didn't play professionally because he played AAU. He was a big believer in amateur athletics, which you could not say the same, Bob, because you were getting paid when you were 17. Key to youth: trim waist, short hair. Amen to that. Don Bates, 33. Wait a minute. So Don Bates came back from the war, and he's 33 years old, and then he's still playing for you guys at Linden. And it sounds like he was one of your best players, him and Bucky Whedon.
He was cleanup hitter. And he's real short. He's only about 5'7", something like 5'8". But, boy, he was a good one.
Here's Slater. Slater still has good baseball.
Yeah, but this is when I was playing for Linden, talking about some of the...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were the leadoff hitter there, 1 for 4. How many years did you play for Linden?
Just 1 year.
Just that 1 year.
Yeah, we won the...
You guys were the state champs that year.
So,
I saw Dick and Don Bertle. Were they twin brothers?
Huh?
Were Dick and Don Bertle twin brothers?
What?
These guys. These two here. Are they twin brothers there? Dick and Don Bertle?
Yeah. Don went to Drake. He was a pitcher for Drake.
Mm-hmm.
We faced him when I was at Simpson. And
his brother was the good catcher for the Cubs.
Well, he played outfield for us. But he went to Iowa State, and they made him a catcher at Iowa State. He was only there 2 years. And he's a great hitter. Hit a long ball.
Mm-hmm.
The nicest kid you'd ever meet.
Because you had Don Bates catching.
Yeah.
So you didn't need Bertle catching, which is pretty amazing.
We had this kid here went to Simpson. He was a little All-American football player at Simpson, also a great baseball player. So we had 2 players from Simpson, me and this guy here. And I have a left-handed pitcher, Bob Etzel from Fort Dodge.
It's probably in the back row, one of these guys.
But when we got to the semifinals, I don't have the clipping on it, but we were playing some team and we tied them, and they went ahead with 1 run in the 9th inning. And Goodrich, who was about 35 years old, he was a pitcher, but he relieved the pitcher that pitched that game, and that's probably he only played about 2 or 3 games all summer, and just filled in a lot of times. But anyway, he hit a triple in the 9th inning. He was the 9th batter, and there was 2 outs, and I came up to bat, and they moved all the outfielders in, because if we scored, the score was tied.
They had to throw the runner out of home.
I was facing a pitcher from Ankeny, one of the great athletes there. I can't remember his name, probably in one of these articles. And so they moved the outfielders way in because the ball hit over the fence, so he could walk in from third.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got 2 strikes on me. There's 2 outs, last of the 9th, and they were ahead by 1 run. And I remember, I'll never forget, it was a high ball, kind of outside, and I whacked it over the third baseman's head. Third baseman's head to bring him in, and it was in Pioneer Park. There was thousands of people there watching the games, and I'll never forget. I was running. I had to get to first base. Of course, as soon as I touched first base, the game's over. The whole team came out. They carried me off the field, and it's some of the great things.
Oh, I mean, that's what makes sports great.
Huh?
That's what makes sports great.
Yeah.
When you got a team of guys that are all rooting and pulling for the same direction, and then you get to be the guy with the winning run on third base, high and outside pitch, and you don't try to pull it. You just go the other way, put it over the our third baseman's head.
Yeah.
That's a cool memory. So, is this the article here?
No, this is when the
that's
game
Gowrie.
played Gowrie, but I got a little right up in here too. I can't remember. Let's see what I did. Here's Etzel. And that all. Then there's
1 for 4.
that was 1 for 4. Oh, here it is. Here.
Here it is. Where is it? Don Bates. A lot of Don Bates.
Oh, maybe.
Honestly. I don't know. I don't see it. Well, Bob, I want to ask you about this article. I'm holding the San Francisco Chronicle article right here.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, you got it? Oh, yeah, there you go. Bob Etzel, 21-year-old Simpson player by way of Fort Dodge, made brilliant stops in the 6th and 8th to choke off any Gowrie aspirations. Nice. And Ed McNeil was playing for Gowrie.
Yeah, with Gowrie.
Well, I got to ask about this. It looks like I'm holding the San Francisco.
This is a little later on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So after Linden, it was in the summertime, and I had a high school teammate by the name of Lawrence Shalene. He played third base on our high school team, and he played for Dubuque, and he played shortstop there, I guess, at Dubuque. He was always a good fielder, but not too good a hitter. So he came and looked me up, and he said, "Bob, why don't we go to California and try to play in the Winter League?" So I said, "Well, okay." So you
hitchhike out to California?
No, he had a car. So we drove to California. And I stopped in. My uncle who was on the fire department in San Francisco. He said, "What did you guys come out here for?" And he said, "Well, we're going to try to play in the Winter League out here." And actually, he worked full-time on the fire department, but he did carpenter work on the side. And he's my dad's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I did some work for a manager here in Des Moines. I'll call him up, see if I can get you guys on the team. So he called him up. His name was Spatafor. And so he said to my uncle, he said, did either one of these players ever play professional baseball? Because he was managing a professional team that was just wanting to keep in shape during the winter or the fall. And he said, yeah, my nephew did, but Lauren didn't. But anyway, he said, well, he told us where to come out and practice. And so we started practicing out there, and I made the team.
For the
Lauren
Seals?
didn't.
Was that the San Francisco Seals there?
Well, I'll tell you, that comes a little later.
Okay.
So anyway, I went to practice, and there's a kid just graduated from high school in California there, and he got signed in the California League. It was, I think, either a D or E League team. And just really a nice kid. He's about 6'8", really.
6'8"?
Yeah, he's one of the, and for some reason he took a liking to me, and I'd sit and talk to him for an hour after practice before we go home, and so he went in and played in minor league baseball. Then he ended up playing in the AAA with the team that Des Moines in. And so I went when he came to Des Moines. I went and looked him up, and it was about 3 years later when he got AAA. And I was talking to him. He said, Bob, are you still playing? I said, no, I'm not playing anymore. He said, really? And anyway, I'll get his name in a minute, but he went on, played in the major leagues for about 15 years, one of the great players of all time. So I met him, and I met, this player for Willie Mays.
Yeah.
So I met two of the greatest players.
Well, what's the guy's name? I'm on pins and needles here.
Jim Gentile.
Oh, famous first baseman, right?
Yeah.
Left-handed hitter.
And I think they were planning on using him till I got there, but they figured since I'd played pro ball,
they're like, we don't need
and
Jim
he
Gentile. We
just out of
got
high
Bob
school,
Etzel playing
but
first.
he did play for another team in the league.
He hit like 400 home runs.
Oh yeah, he was a great player. He was a big kid. He was about 6'8", and just the nicest kid you'd ever meet.
That's pretty cool. We could have used him for Corpus Christi. He would have been a nice player for the Celts.
Yeah. So anyway, I played the first town we went to. We had a company that sponsors us. We had a bus and everything, and we went and played in all the Pacific League stadiums out there. And 3,000 or 4,000 people would come free, just.
Well, I bet because at that time, that Pacific Coast League, a lot of folks in the West Coast thought it rivaled the major leagues on the East Coast because most of the major league teams are on the East Coast.
Our pitcher pitched for the Seals, San Francisco Seals. San
Francisco Seals.
And he said, I said, did you ever get to major leagues? He said, no. But he said, I could have went. But that Pacific League was called 4A. Major League was 3A. He said, I had a house in San Francisco. I was married, and they were paying me just as much as the major leagues. So he said, I never went, but he pitched several years.
Well,
and he was the pitcher on our team that I played. And so
I believe it because
anyway,
the DiMaggio brothers were from San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they all played for the Seals as well.
Right.
And Joe DiMaggio was making like just as much money for the Seals before he signed with the Yankees.
Same with Ted Williams.
And Williams was that way as well?
Yeah.
So
he was getting $75,000 a year in the major leagues.
That's good money. There's a lot of insurance guys that aren't making that type of money.
Millions of dollars. But anyway, I kind of forgot what it was.
Well, we were talking about the Pacific Coast League there, and you had an ex-major leaguer as your, or not.
The pitcher was in 4A.
Yeah.
And our second baseman played with the Boston Braves. Our third baseman was the manager's son. He played in AAA. And after that first game, I said, "What am I doing playing with?" College players, they probably pitch about 80 miles an hour. When you get to professionals, they don't sign you unless you can pitch at least 90 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, that was the best team I ever played with, because we had several major leaguers on there, and all of them were professional players.
How do you think that Linden team that you played on, where you had the Linden team that you played on, where you had the Bertle kid, you had Don Bates, who was a good player, you had a lefty pitcher that eventually played some pro ball.
Well,
how does the Linden team compete against the team that you played out with in California?
Oh, they wouldn't.
Not even close?
No. I didn't realize until I played a game with them, but they were so much better than any college player, all of them.
How did you play when you were out there?
Huh?
How did you play out in California?
Well, I hit real good. I had that little bat.
Yeah.
And so I played the whole season with them. And at the end of the year, the manager asked me, "Are you a free agent or are you going to play?" And I said, "No, I'm a free agent." He said, "I want you to go over to having a tryout. It's San Francisco's Seals Park." And so I said, "Okay." And he must have given me a hell of a
recommendation,
because I walked into the I'll let you read it.
Well, I see that in the San Francisco Chronicle here, it features you. The grapevine brings word that Bob Etzel, former high school and junior college athlete and son of police chief and Mrs. Fred Etzel, is currently playing first base with Carlsbad in the Longhorn League. He's been with the club for more than a month. So out of everybody...
That must have been a later one.
Oh, what?
Anyway, here's the contract I signed. You want to see what a professional...
Wow. Class C, National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues, Carlsbad Baseball, Robert Frederick Etzel, $200, $200 a month. This is pretty cool. You got a pretty good signature there, Bob.
When I just showed up at the tryout, and I was only there about a half hour. He said, "I want you to go into the office." So I went in the office, and here the manager for Carlsbad was there. Sign me up. And signed that contract.
Right away.
Yeah, I never hit, never fielded, did anything.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
So
this is
the
pretty
manager
cool.
From that Winter League team must have given me a good write-up or a good.
Did you play against any future big leaguers when you were playing for Carlsbad back then?
Yeah. Well, we had a couple major league teams players on our team. Plus this pitcher pitched several years for San Francisco Seals, 4A.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the only reason I didn't go to the big leagues was that I had a house and I was married, and I could when we played our home games, when we went on the road, I was gone. But he said half the games are played in Seals Park, so he said I just decided not to go to the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those players in that Pacific League were some of the better players, like Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams.
Well, I believe it, just because the major leagues hadn't hit the West Coast yet. So you had a lot of guys that just had families, and they grew up on the West Coast, and they weren't going to move to New York or Boston, Chicago to play baseball, so they stayed on the West Coast.
Well, they didn't have them big salaries back then either. Like
right, yeah.
Ted Williams, I think, got, $175,000 or something.
Was Ted Williams your hero? Like, you said earlier that he was the best hitter you ever saw. Was he kind of like?
Well, he's the only hitter that ever hit 400 in the major leagues,
mm-hmm.
and he did that twice. He got called in to the service. He was a pilot
in 2 wars,
in the Korean War, and then he came back.
And World War II as well.
Yeah, and then the second time he hit 406, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
But he was The last game of the season, they played a doubleheader in Fenway Park, and he was at, I think, about 395 or something like that. And the manager told him, "Do you want to sit these two games out? Because that's the highest average anybody had ever had." He said, "No, I want to play." I guess he got 2 hits in the first game and 2 hits in the second game. So he's over 400. Mm-hmm. He's the only player ever hit 400. But
Bob, when you look back on your athletic career, you played all over the country, from North Carolina to San Francisco and Summers, Iowa, and everywhere in between. You mentioned the memory about you getting carried off the field. You mentioned the home run against Omaha. What other memories, like when you close your eyes at night, that do you think of? Huh? What other memories outside of the Omaha home run, the getting carried off the field on the game-winning hit for Linden? Like, what are the other memories that you have that remind you of everything that you love about sports?
Well, be honest with you, so many years ago, I'm 93 and a half.
Hey, you remember a lot of this pretty good.
If I didn't have these clippings, I wouldn't. And the trouble is, if I don't have the clippings, I don't think anybody would believe me. I don't even believe myself what I did. I really wasn't that good. But in fact, after I played that first game, in the Winter League, that was the best team I ever played, a lot better than Carlsbad. And because that was Class C,
right.
There's D, C, B, A, and double A, triple A in major leagues. But I only played at Carlsbad for about 22 games. And I slid into second base, head first, second baseman with the spikes. And my whole hand swelled up. And I didn't tell anybody about it. I tried to play. I couldn't hold the bat right. And I didn't get a hit for about 3 games. My average, I was about 250, something like that. Went down. I think I ended up with about 180 or 280.
Because you couldn't grip the bat.
And I sold it to the manager, and we were halfway through the season, or a third of the way. And I said, went home and I soaked it, for a couple hours. And every time I caught it, it was on my glove hand. Every time I caught it, terrible pain. And I played 2 or 3 games of that. And I finally showed it to the manager. I says, "I can't play anymore." And I says, "It's probably going to be a month or 2 before this gets better." So I said, "I'm going home." So I came back.
Yeah, here we've got
They wanted me to come back and play another year.
Dear Bob, March 18th, 1956, Carlsbad Baseball Club, the Potashers. Dear Bob, we train in Mineral Wells, Texas, beginning March 21st. Our headquarters will be the Crazy Hotel. I am sorry that I have not informed you of this before. I hope that you are still planning to train with us. If so, I will see you soon. Very truly yours, Thurman Tucker, the manager of the Carlsbad team. That's pretty cool. Yeah, they sent you. So you get this letter, and you decide, I'm done.
Well, what happened, my dad was chief of police at Fort Dodge, and the commissioner was the one that picked the chief of police. He was chief of police for about 10 years there. But anyway, he got in trouble drinking or something, had a wreck, and he lost his job, and they got a new commissioner. So my dad knew that he was probably going to pick a new chief, and he'd have to go back to be a lieutenant. So he decided to retire. So for some reason, he went and talked to a guy that's in kind of the junk business, and he was selling drugs to there was a kind of a, I can't remember it was a bunch of supermarkets all over northwest Iowa and southern Minnesota. Anyway, he was selling drugs to them, and then he also had toy racks. Well, after about 3 months, he decided he didn't like the toy business, and so the stores, they always put it up by the checkout, so mothers with kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, he quit servicing them, and the stores finally put the racks back in the back of the store in the basement. But he'd sell them drugs, bring in. So anyway, he wanted to sell it. My dad seen the ad, I don't know, with the paper or something, and he decided that's what he'd like to do, have something to retire.
And is this where Midwest
so when
Toy
I came back
started?
From being injured, my brother was going to Drake during the summer. He graduated from Iowa, but he's taking a couple courses at Drake during the summer. So I stopped in to see him. I hadn't seen him for 6 months, longer. And I read in the paper that Maxburg needed a coach. And it was on a Saturday night. And so I called him up and I said, "Do you need a coach?" He said, "Yes." And I said, I could only coach for 1 semester because the second semester I was going back to spring training. And so he said, "Well, come on over. This is Saturday. School started Monday." I walked in at 8 o'clock. He looked at me, he shoved the contract over, said, "Sign." 9 o'clock, I was teaching science.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.